What's up, everybody? This week featured Secret Invasion episode 4, the shortest of the bunch, though the same as last week. Its runtime didn't confine it. This is going to be my full spoiler review of the episode, so if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, I suggest you subscribe to the channel or leave a like on the video so you can make your way back once you have. I hope you enjoy the episode or enjoyed it if you've already seen it, and have a great day. Now let's get into the episode. The opening sequence picked up immediately where we left off at the end of episode 3 with Gaia seemingly dying on the ground, but as many predicted, she survived. I assumed she did as I was preaching fire doesn't kill a dragon all week last week, but I didn't expect it to happen the way it did. I was wrong about that, and one other thing this week actually, and I'll get into the second one in just a bit here. First off, we need to finish talking about Gaia because while she was reading the mind of the Commandant from last week's episode stopping World War III, she also read the mind of the scientist working on the Super Scroll serum and made herself one. The Extremis kicks in, Gaia gets up, and the credits roll. I thought this was a rather anticlimactic opening sequence because of the fact the marketing ruined the fact she's still alive. I feel like everyone and their mom who paid any attention to the trailers knew we hadn't seen the last of her, but it was still refreshing to see Khaleesi alive. Switching up the order again this week, I'm going to go over the top 3 performances of the week now, because with the shorter episode, I've compacted my thoughts into smaller sections. So with that, the first we acknowledge is Ben Mendelsohn. This was another great week for him as Talos, especially towards the end of the episode that we'll talk about in the end of the video, but he was really just climbing and climbing higher and higher in terms of his performance as the show went on. Then the man he spends so much time with, returning to the list once again, Samuel L. Jackson. He was not only a badass this week, but also brought the emotional gravitas when need be, again, towards the end of the episode, just like his pal, Ben Mendelsohn. And finally, Don Cheadle. If you give this man the screen time needed, he will deliver, and this week it was a rather eccentric performance. He delivered. Now, if I remember correctly, one of the major magazines released promo for the show with Gaia wiping the mirror after the shower, and that was in this episode, and she turned to Rhodey, so I'm assuming Gaia's been Rhodey for a little bit at least, and watching Don Cheadle be Amelia Clark but himself but not himself was amazing and hilarious. It was of course teased last week that he was a Skrull, as Fury had on good authority from when Rhodey called him Nick that there was a Skrull high up in the US government. This was indeed Rhodey. I was wrong. I admit it. Yada yada yada, get out of my face. We find out this though because Priscilla goes to meet with the man she was on the phone with at the end of episode 3, and it turns out to be Rhodey. Fury and his wife had quite the dynamic this episode, though, as he put me through a complete and utter mindfuck during every scene with her, except that first one, actually. That one was just like the opening of last week's episode, where it's them bonding and having a good moment as a couple, but this time it was in Paris, 2012. Then later in the episode, after Skrull Rhodey tells her she has to kill him, they have one of the weirdest standoffs at their kitchen table, shoot around each other, and go their separate ways. So while she's a Skrull, she seems to be one of the good ones still, and Fury did know she was one, but he didn't, but he did, but he didn't want to accept it, but he knew. It's weird. This show's weird. Fury has a scene in the hotel room where Skrull Rhodey threatens him, but that scene is absolutely stolen by Don Cheadle. Don't get me wrong, the dynamic between Sam and Don is amazing and definitely what makes it flow well, but Don is just that good, and he makes it work. And then really quick before we go over the end of the episode, I want to talk about Talos and Gaia, because it does kind of feed into the end of the episode too. They had their scene together on the bench after Gaia survives, and while it wasn't the best it's ever been, it was even more impactful with the full context of the episode. Something I noticed during it, and if the 3 I already acknowledged hadn't been so good, she would have been in the top 3, but Amelia Clark is really good at acting with her eyes. Whether that's intentionally or not, they conveyed such a strong message during the scenes as the father and daughter ultimately end up disagreeing once again and going their separate ways. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's go over the end of the episode. While the bombing in Moscow was a great ending to episode 1, this fight between Gravik and his Skrulls, posing as the Russians, and the US was wild. It was all-out warfare as the Skrulls had ambushed the president's convoy, and if Fury hadn't shown up with Talos and taken out the final chopper, the entire convoy might have been done for. Reinforcements arrive for Fury and Talos as they make their way to President Ritson's car as he's unconscious and trapped. As Talos is using his super strength to get through the bulletproof glass, he gets shot, and we get this trippy, we'll call it a montage of it being half Talos and half Ben Mendelsohn. But it looks like he'll make it, and it's a really cool visual scene. Fury gets the president out, and Talos is turned full green boy from his injury, but gets help from one of the soldiers, and he's halfway to Fury's car when the earth stops spinning, and Fury realizes something's off. He figures out it's really Gravik carrying Talos, but there's nothing he can do as Gravik plunges a blade into Talos' heart, and Fury has to choose to save the president and loses another friend. As I'm recording this, though, I'm not so sure he's dead. Uh, I seem to remember there being more scenes with him in the trailer, but I'll make a video on it. It'll be a short. I'll make it later in the week, so stay tuned for that. Oh, and I should mention too that Gravik showed off his group powers during this fight, and it was epic. This was a really cool final fight, and one that I personally was left verbally exclaiming throughout. I really hope he's not dead, but if he is, thank you so much, Ben Mendelsohn, for being absolutely amazing in your time with Marvel. You're the best. Much like I think this was the best episode of the show. Do you agree with that, though? Let me know down in the comments and what you thought about Secret Invasion Episode 4, and I hope you enjoyed both the episode and my breakdown. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out, and make sure you have a great day.